What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the highlights of this exclusive Zoom call where we sampled the brand new Davidoff Orchant Selccion Liverpool edition, alongside with some beautiful cognacs from Remy Martin, the 1738 and the XO. Now we're going to jump into the call right at the beginning there. There's a couple of minutes that unfortunately missed off, but what we're going to do is throw into the call where Jack Charlton from Remy Martin is just discussing the best way to really get those maximum amount of flavours from the cognacs. Also on the call, we have myself, Anthony from Davidoff. We also have Roy Summer from Davidoff UK. We have Sam Router, who is the Davidoff Global Ambassador. And we also have the legends from C.Gars, Mitchell Orchant and Paul Hindmarsh. Hope you guys enjoy this video, and make sure you keep your eyes peeled for the next virtual Herfs coming up from C.Gars and also from Davidoff as well. And we hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Oaky notes. So for me, I think it's just nice to have like a wine glass, because it helps to open up the bouquet of the cognac a little bit. This is probably one of our kind of most versatile spirits, whether we're using it for cocktails or whether we're having it neat, or even when it's a little bit warmer. I don't know what the temperature's like where you are now, but yeah, having a couple of ice cubes actually does wonders for it. It's obviously, there's a bit of a taboo with putting ice in cognac, but you know, I think there's nothing wrong with having an ice cube or two if you're a bit warm. For us, I think with 1738, as mentioned, you know, we're trying to celebrate that kind of oaky profile. It's a blend of between 170 and 250 different eau de vie, depending, because we're using a dynamic product like grapes. The blends year on year will slightly change depending on the quality, the fruit, the acidity, etc., etc. The top end of the blend, so the oldest liquid in the glass, is around the 20-year-old mark. The youngest is closer towards the 4-year-old mark, which is a VSOP level. So you have a blend of cognacs ranging from 4 years up to 20 years. I think the majority is around the kind of mid-level range in between the two. Now, for us, what I would never recommend doing with a cognac is not to do this, because when you kind of agitate it too much, you're actually releasing all of the ethanol, you're releasing all of the alcohol, and then you go to smell it, and you get that hit of alcohol straight away. So what is nice to do is just to roll the glass instead and just help open it up a little bit, and it allows you also just to see this kind of sheen that you get. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on the camera, but you'll see this little sheen that you get on the side of the glass, and these lovely little legs coming down, these little slow teardrops. Now, the older the cognac, the longer it's been aging in the oak barrels, the slower and thicker these little legs will be. It's actually a really good sign when you have a spirit, a high quality premium spirit, and you have these really nice straight legs that run all the way down. It means it hasn't been adulterated with lots of sugars and caramels and all these additives. You want to see these nice straight lines. Whereas if you do this with like a liqueur or maybe some cheaper brandies, what you'll get is this kind of spotting and this runoff where the kind of additives and the spirit itself haven't kind of harmonized properly, and you get this little spider web kind of motted kind of effect. So it's always a nice sign to see straight lines all the way down. When we do the distillation as well, so when we turn the wine into the spirit, into the base spirit, which is called eau de vie, we actually don't filter it as well. So we leave in a lot of the micro fruit particles. We leave in all of these like residual yeast particles, which are collectively known as the lees, L-E-E-S, and that gives real structure and body to the cognacs. And Remy Martin are one of the only major cognac houses. I think we are the only actual major cognac house that distills all of our liquids on the lees. So it's a lot more difficult to produce consistent liquid when you're doing that, because you have to watch the temperature of the stills a lot more, and you have to really, manage the temperature, like otherwise it can burn. But that's where Remy Martin gets its kind of signature smoothness and structure on the palate as well. So always try to come with a little bit of a distance. I know probably some of you have your cigars lit already, so it's going to be a little bit harder to pick out some of the notes. But if you come from a bit of a distance first and just close your eyes, and what you should be getting is that kind of subtle butterscotch, almost a little bit oaky on the kind of base notes. And then as you get your nose right in, you start to get these lovely notes of like banana, you start to get some choc chip, you can start to get things like fig and plum jam. So it's really good to just kind of go back to it every now and again. And what happens, the longer you leave it in the glass, the more it develops. And I think, you know, because you've got all these wonderful notes of like citrus and like kind of like almost like orange peel, we find it works beautifully with the Davidoff cigars that we pair with. I don't think I've had a bad pairing yet with the guys at Puffin Rooms or with you, Roy. What does everyone think? Everyone's getting some nice notes. So let's have a little taste. Santé, chin chin.
Chin.
Santé.
So I think for me, you know, you have to remember it's still a 40% spirit. I'm sure we're talking to some seasoned professionals now, but I think for me, what I really love is that kind of that viscosity of the 1738 that comes through first, and then there's a little bit of spice, and then you get that lovely kind of oaky profile that comes through. How are you finding it with the cigars? I'm in the office, so I can't actually smoke mine, but are you finding it's going well?
Mm-hmm. We'll go to you, Sam.
Well, I think, and thank you for explaining this, Jack. Very interesting. I think the cognac is very smooth. You know, it's very gentle, subtle, it's elegant. What I always enjoy with cognacs, you get a little bit this. I call it a bit this. Well, you said before, Mar de Bourgogne, or this little wine taste, which I like, you know, in cognacs, which for me makes it a bit more special versus a whiskey or rum. And what I like also with this cognac, you have a very long aftertaste. So having a long aftertaste on your palate, together with the cigar, you can see how they mingle, both of them, on the palate. You know, it's beautiful because you get the cigar, but then you have again the cognac on the palate. So it's really, they're really playing with each other. And for me, very importantly, nor the cognac nor the cigar is basically overpowering. So they're really going hand in hand.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful, yeah.
You're almost, for me, I think for me, when we're doing like cigar pairings, and it's really, you know, a really important word for us in the cognac industry is this idea of terroir, which loosely kind of translates to provenance, you know, from what in the ground, what in that location where you're producing this product is shaping the final product. And for me, it's really interesting because there's a lot of parallels as well with when we look at cigars as well, and how important where you're growing the tobacco is, how the sunlight's hitting it, even the craftsmanship of the people rolling the cigars, how that affects the flavor and the taste. And then even now, you know, it's not a static thing, it's a dynamic thing, because even now when we're pairing the cognac with the cigar, you're creating these secondary and these tertiary flavors that you don't find in the cognac or you don't find in the cigar. So for me, you know, it's really interesting because especially as the cigar develops as well, you know, as you get closer down to the end, for me, I love that kind of, it's almost a bit like a journey. You know, you don't know what it's going to be like until you do it. And I think for me, it's a real kind of meditative state to just have a nice cigar, switch off, you know, turn off your bloody phones, turn off everything, and just literally just chill out. I think it's very, very, very important, especially in this day and age.
That's true. Especially when you say phones with an S, you have two.
Yeah. yeah, it's crazy. I don't even know which one's my work phone anymore.
No, but I think it's interesting talking about terroir. So if we take a closer look at the cigar, the Orchant Selccion, especially made for Liverpool, very, very limited. And basically, so when you talk terroir here, we have been concentrating on 4, let's say, actually it's 7 different terroirs, but 4 different origins. So you have a beautiful Ecuadorian wrapper on it, and what I always like, it's very nice, oily, it's shiny, as you can see. It's smooth, elegant. And you have a Mexican binder around it. It's called Negro San Andres, from the Andres Valley from Mexico, which is quite high in altitude and producing a lovely tobacco that gets a little bit of sweetness of ginger, adding to the blend. Then you have 2 different tobaccos from Nicaragua. Typical one, Esteli, a little bit more peppery, and you have one from Condega, which gives a little bit more sweetness in the cigars. And then basically, I always say balanced off or like harmonized with 3 different Dominican tobaccos. So the Dominican tobaccos basically gives you this balance. It takes a little bit of the strength of the Nicaraguan tobaccos. And here we have from the grades, by the way, I forgot to tell you, we have more Visus and Ligeros. So basically on paper, quite a strong cigar. And then and talking about the blend, I mean, Paul, you know it best how you did the tasting. So this cigar is really tailored to the pleasures, to the laws of the cigar aficionado, especially from Liverpool, enjoying a little bit more the stronger cigars with a little bit more character and complexity to it. And I think what is beautiful is that you have these initial peppery notes in the cigar that is quite like a little bit melted down with the cognac. You know, I think that is a very nice combination at the beginning. Yeah,
absolutely. What's everyone's reaction? Are they enjoying the cigar? I'm thinking smiling and nodding faces, so that's usually a good sign.
I think Peter said it's very nice, both smooth but also delightfully floral, and a great pairing. Big fan of Remy as well, says Andy. So it seems to be going pretty well.
Fantastic. It's like we did it on purpose.
Yeah. Question for you, Jack. You mentioned at the beginning that you said that a cube of ice might be good to add to this cognac specifically. I don't want to take it to the other spectrum, which is maybe better known, where people heat up the cognac. What's the reason why people do that?
So it's a bit of a thing where, you know, like one person sees someone doing it and then it's kind of almost like Chinese whispers. So back in the day, when the kind of people that would be able to afford cognacs, when it was at its peak, they would be living in quite large mansions. You know, we wouldn't have been as blessed with central heating back then as well. So naturally, inside homes were slightly colder, and that therefore the liquid that would be on the shelf in your big crystal decanter would be slightly under room temperature as we know it now. So the idea was that you'd have your big brandy balloon glass. You would heat the glass up and it would keep you warm as well. So it would be like a little hand warmer for you, but also just to kind of bring the cognac up to room temperature or even body temperature, which is why people hold it in their hands like this. To be honest, these days with central heating, with the quality of the spirit as well. So for example, you know, Remy, you know, we double distill everything and we're making sure that every single drop of liquid that comes out of the distillery is excellent. So when you're kind of boiling it, it's almost the same as when I said about agitating the glass. You're actually releasing and exciting the particles a little bit too much, and you release more of the alcohol. You lose all of the delicate aromas, and you actually kind of make it a little bit more aggressive. Now, why I was saying it's quite nice sometimes to add a little ice cube into the cognac is it actually lowers the ABV slightly, and it opens up some of the aromas and the floral notes that you actually are there, but you can't get them because of the alcohol level. It's the same when you have a drop of water in a whiskey. It opens it up, it breaks some of those really complex bonds, brings them to the top, so you get a kind of fresher and a bit more, you know, a bit more of a kind of fair observation of the spirit itself. So yeah, it's not sacrilege anymore to put a little drop of water or even an ice cube in your cognac. I think it would actually be quite nice on a nice warm day in somewhere hot.
Well, London has been hot for the last couple of days, so
well, yeah.
I think it's
about to start raining now, so yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Can't have it all.
I believe Mitchell is also on the call. Maybe good to know from Mitchell and Paul, perhaps, how this project came about.
It was the second Davidoff Orchant Selccion edition, the first one being the Lancero from about, was it 3 years ago, Paul? Seems like it's
3 years ago.
2018, yeah.
Yeah, and that was extremely popular. It was a fantastic blend made for us by Davidoff, which we were quite delighted with. In fact, it's my partner Ron's favourite cigar I think that we ever made. So that's quite a high accolade because he's a fussy bugger. And we wanted to follow it with something a little bit different. So we wanted to go up in size. So the 654 was a very serious, big size cigar, and it really needed a meatier blend than the Lancero, which was very delicate. It was very delicate in terms of strength. And I wanted to do this Toro as being the other end of the scale. One for the connoisseur, one for the experienced cigar smoker who could handle a full-bodied cigar. Not that there was anything wrong with the Lancero. It was very full-flavored, but it was very, very light and delicate on strength. So I think Davidoff really nailed it. I mean, we did quite a lot of blend samples back and forth, but I think, and Paul thinks as well, because we went backwards and forwards on this, that you absolutely nailed the blend, Sam, because it produced exactly what we wanted. A very serious cigar for the very experienced cigar smoker that could pick up the nuances of flavor and not just detect strength alone, but just a bold character of flavor, a full flavored and a full bodied cigar. Body is very different from strength, as hopefully you guys know. So yeah, I think great job, great size, magnificent presentation, sort of pays homage to our roots in Liverpool where we started in 1817. Hope you feel that I'm looking good for my age. Well, I'm old now. And yeah, it's a project we've been very proud to have partnered with Davidoff on, and it's been very, very well received by a different segment of our clientele. Very much the more experienced cigar smoker who have really taken to this particular blend, which was a departure from my usual brief of it's got to be light, it's got to be sweet, and so on. So yeah, I think nailed it on the blend, and I'm quite delighted with it. And it'd be great to have the feedback from our viewers tonight, especially my regulars. Hello, Tom. Hello, Nick in the boat. Inside joke there. Hello, Peter. John at Sober Cigar. Why are you sober? Were you previously drunk? Have you taken the pledge? I don't know. But anyway, nice to see everybody. And also lots of my ex-employees here. It looks like I'm a training ground for the cigar industry these days. But hey, nice to see you guys. So yeah, that's my thoughts generally.
Perfect. So you kind of mentioned that it has appealed to maybe a smaller group of cigar smokers.
Definitely.
More experienced, yeah.
To put it in some sort of context, Roy, you know, we have on our database, I don't know, about 130,000 clients in the UK. And, you know, generally what I try to do is create a cigar for my mass market. Obviously for business reasons, it's a smarter move. But if you're only making an edition of 300 boxes, 3,000 sticks is a very small edition for a very, very large database. And as it's not a run of cigars like the Alec Bradley Orchant Selccion or Oliva Orchant Selccion or Regius, the yearly releases, you're not going to really stretch it too far across the database of that size. So we try to hit a particular niche within the database that we hadn't really targeted before. I mean, we've done stronger cigars. We did a Drew Estate, or we do a Drew Estate Orchant Selccion edition of 3 cigars. And they're quite a powerhouse. But, you know, again, they're sort of medium budget level. We wanted to make a super premium with Davidoff on this particular edition, and I think we did. I think we nailed it, and it hit the spot with a particular segment.
Perfect. So Sam, when Mitchell and Paul kind of gave you the brief, how do you go to work?
Yeah, so basically, I mean, just to give you a bit of background on the whole, let's say, exclusive initiative, it's really to create or to develop exceptional creations, you know, with customized blends, as unique as our partner, as unique as C.Gars or Mitchell and Paul, you know, which they really know what they want, which is always a great help, by the way. And we just want to craft the cigars and make everybody please, and also to celebrate, you know, Liverpool celebrates cigars. You have the nice box with the stunning skyline on it, and basically, that's all about exclusive, you know, as the name says, it's very exclusive, 3,000 cigars only, and giving a few lucky aficionados the opportunity to enjoy really a truly unique and customized cigar experience. So when it comes then basically to the first brief, you know, we need to know what does Mitchell or Paul or the team, what are they looking for in a cigar? As Mitchell has explained very well, you know, they wanted to have a cigar that's a bit stronger, you know, going more in this connoisseur corner. I feel the cigar is strong, complex, but at the same time, you can filter out the aromas, which is always important, you know, because I mean, doing a strong cigar is not the most difficult challenge, but having a certain strength in it and flavorful, that's very difficult to achieve. And basically, we created this the blend. We knew it's going to be a 50x6 Toro format. I was briefing our team of master blenders, you know, a little bit background information on cigars, who we're doing it for, you know, what is the aim of the cigar, and basically they come up with different blends that we then share forth and back, you know, until the client, in this case Mitchell and the team, is satisfied with the final blend, you know. And that's what I said before. If you, as a customer, you know exactly what is the preference of your cigar smokers, or where do you want to go with the blend, that of course makes it much easier for us, you know. And that's where we took it. We said, okay, let's concentrate more on complexity, a little bit more on strength by adding up the grades of the leaves. So we use only Visus and Ligero in the filler tobaccos, giving this kind of the engine of the cigar, making sure that the engine is a bit stronger, you know. And also I feel what is nice when we talk about connoisseur or when we talk about collectors, I think this cigar gets very well with the age. If you store it a couple of years in humidor, it will go a little bit more subtle, maybe a little bit more elegant, but it's great to age. And I think that's always a beauty when you have a cigar that you can age and try maybe in a couple of years. Yeah.
I think what you achieved was a tremendous balance between the strength and the flavors of the cigar, which came out and expressed itself in a very full-bodied smoke that's not overpowering the flavor of the cigar. I pick up so many different nuances in the actual 3/3 of the cigar. I just think it's an absolute connoisseur's blend, perfectly balanced. And you know, I am a huge fan of Davidoff, particularly the late hour. Winston Churchill, Paul and I, we've had evenings where we've argued whether we prefer the Churchill or the Robusto, and smoked quite a few of them together at late hour termos. And I think they, for me, are the closest thing in terms of a balanced, full-bodied cigar. And I think you've created something with a different flavor, but that same sort of balance with this particular Toro Orchant Selccion. So yeah, I think it's excellent. What does everybody else think? Can people unmute and give us their opinion, good, bad, or indifferent? Because the feedback would be great. We use you as a focus group.
Absolutely, yeah. Don't be shy.
£10 per opinion. Big cool.
Anybody want to give their opinion? Tom, Shafira?
Hi,
Peter?
Sorry, yeah. Just to jump in, yeah, it's lovely. It's really interesting. That very first couple of little kind of like puffs, really smooth, and it really draws you in. And then as you kind of come in, there's a bit more spice to it, a little bit more, a lot more depth. And again, works really lovely with the cognac. But yeah, just it's funny because the color of the cigar, the kind of the wrapper and whatnot, you think, oh my word, this is going to be a really hefty number, and it is got that kind of heftiness, but it's got a lovely kind of all-round ability. Sorry about the noise outside, but yeah, it's just got a really lovely kind of all-round quality, and it draws you in, and it's got a little bit of spiciness, a little bit of florality. It's got that not over woodiness, so it doesn't like blow your mind. Yeah, it's great, loving it.
Good, excellent.
And Liverpool's a brilliant city, so
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
I think we had on social media. We had somebody on social media. We had somebody comment, said it should have been an Everton edition.
That's really funny.
I said it should have been a Forest edition, but
Oh yeah.
It's beautiful. First off, the pairing is fantastic. Up until just now, I've only had probably one glass of cognac in my life, so I'm really, really impressed.
Well, just like cigars, it's a really expensive habit. I do apologise.
Well, yeah, well, talk to my wife about that. Just as soon as I got it out the bag and smelt the Ecuadorian wrapper, I just thought, yeah, this is absolutely for me. But I like what you said, Mitchell. It's powerful but not overwhelming. I mean, I can smoke the strongest cigars and I love them, but this really delivers on flavour as well. You can pick up that it's a multinational blend, and it's typically Davidoff. You know, it's got the power, and I love the Lake Tower and the Nicaragua, the Yamasa. It's got the power and the strength of flavour, but it doesn't knock your head off. Not that I would mind that, but yeah, it's just I'd recommend it to anybody who has got even a half decent cigar palate. It's beautiful.
Great.
It was Mark Lawson, who can't be here tonight, that thought it should be Everton.
Oh, that's okay. There we are. So I knew
put
somebody
a blue band on it then.
like a royal release. Yeah. Jack, I think we'll
we're ready.
XO.
Ready for the next one. So you should have your little tiny. It's perfect for the top pocket of your suit as well. Sort of a cheeky little pocket square. So our XO probably doesn't need that much of an introduction, but it's I still will anyway. So it's a blend of our finest eau de vie, so our finest distillates. There's about 400 different blends that go into each bottle of XO. So very, very complex. When you have more blends, you're going to have more complexity. So if you think that, you know, our XO has 400, and then if you compare it to something like our Louis XIII, which is the top end, we've got around 1,200 different blends. So, you know, the complexity is there from the blending of the different vintages and the different eau de vie. The youngest liquid that you have in the XO is around 10 years old, but the oldest is up to the 30-year mark. So you've got that real kind of richness. And if you're kind of trying to understand the difference, what kind of young eau de vie, so young spirit and the old spirit does, the best way to kind of describe it, like an analogy, would be to compare it to a person. You know, when you're young, you're very energetic, you're very, you know, full of beans, and that's quite similar to the aromas and the flavor profiles of younger cognacs and younger brandies. They're full of energy. They're very vibrant. They're very, you know, they're very kind of, there's a lot of movement to it, so to speak. As you get older, you become a bit more, you know, I don't want to say lazier, but you become a little bit more relaxed. You know, you become a lot more controlled. And that's the same with the aromas. So the longer you leave it aging in the barrels, the more of the alcohol that evaporates, the more, so the evaporation consolidates all of the flavors that are there. So you go from quite fresh floral notes with young cognac, and that turns into things like jam, and then eventually you go into these things called rancio aromas or tertiary aromas, which are your things like leather and cigar box and, you know, truffle. And that's when you start to get to that really kind of almost a bit funky, and that's, for me, with XO, that's the real interesting stuff. It's almost kind of like umami and savory on the top end. So pop a little bit into your glass. And we're going to do the same thing again, and just to kind of roll them around. And what's really nice, if you have two glasses, it's perfect, but not if you compare and contrast the two. What you'll notice with the XO is the color is obviously a lot darker, just because it's had a lot longer in the barrels, but also the viscosity, because it's been longer in the barrels. You have a lot more of the water and the spirit that's evaporated through the porous Limousin oak that we use, which is quite large grain. So you get that almost kind of liquid honey consistency of the spirit. And that's why when you have something like XO, which is a lot older, you have a much more of an increase in the mouthfeel, because there's less of that kind of water content. It's more viscous, and it gives you that all-encompassing emulsive effect on your palate. Now, with the XO, you should start from a little bit further of a distance. So you bring it to about here, close your eyes, and just start breathing through your nose. And what you'll notice is these are the top notes. So these are the young cognacs, the young eau de vie that you find inside. They're very floral, as we mentioned earlier. And then as you bring it closer and closer and closer, these aromas will intensify. It goes from being kind of perfume to citrus and fruit. And then as you get your nose right in, you start to get things like stewed figs, and you start to get these almost kind of truffly notes. Have a little sip as well. Santé.
Santé.
straight away with me with XO, I get this wonderful smoothness, almost like a vanilla ice cream, just kind of like running over my palate. And then the show starts. You get this kind of savory umami sensation that comes in. I got these little notes of cinnamon and licorice and black pepper. Kind of, there's a lot going on on my palate. And I think this is going to be really interesting because as the cigar has developed, as you've smoked it, you're probably around the half or the third mark now. It'll be really interesting to kind of pick out the savory notes of the cognac as it gets a bit more intense. What's happening to the flavors in the cigar as you're getting towards the end, Sam? What can you tell me? I wish I could smoke mine, but it's almost torturous.
No, I think Roy, you need to leave, right?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. I wish you all an enjoyable session. Anthony will take over the hosting from me now. So enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you, Roy.
Cheers.
Bye. See you later on, Roy.
Thanks a lot.
Roy.
Bye, Roy.
Talk about him now. Oh, he's still there.
He's still there. He's still there. We can't talk yet. Brilliant. Okay, so Sam, I think people will probably be sort of coming through the first third of the cigar into the second third. Can you kind of give us an idea of what to expect and what to kind of look out for in the middle third there?
Yeah, I think your palate is a little bit now. How can I say? You have been basically through the first third, so the palate is a little bit, you have the flavor on palate already. It's a bit used, in a good way. Also with the first cognac, and I think now the cigar, you can notice from, let's say, a little bit peppery, spicy beginning, it gets a bit smoother, it gets a bit more creamy. You have also these leather notes in the cigar, which I think you have also here in the XO cognac, which I think it's a nice match in terms of flavors. For me, the cognac has still like a different layer on it. It has more complexity, and with the cigar, now it's basically more on a higher level. Although I think the cigar now being, for me, medium up in terms of strength, you have also a little bit more wooden notes coming out. But it's very interesting how the two of them are harmonizing with each other, I have to say. And I just think the cigar can really hold with the cognac. It's going hand in hand, and I think also this creaminess, this smoothness, because your palate is a bit used now. It's giving you kind of a new taste experience. It's adding a layer to it, which for me is very interesting to notice.
Brilliant. Does everyone agree? Anyone wants to take themselves off mute to add anything further to the cigar? I think everyone's just enjoying it far too much.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. Mitchell, obviously this like you've said previously, it is kind of a departure from the Lancero, the London edition. Do you kind of agree with Sam's thoughts on the middle third, on how the cigars developed and kind of built up those layers?
Definitely. And I think it goes very well with the cognac, because I don't think either product challenges. I think they complement very well. I don't know, what do you think? Are you drinking it, Anthony?
I have got it. I'm kind of taking conversation. I'm paying attention to the conversation. I'm going to wait until after, and then I'm going to go down onto
drinking you.
I know what you mean, Mitch. It's kind of like one hand washes the other. It's one leads you to wanting a little bit more of the other, I think.
Absolutely. And there's this, ongoing debate, really. When you're doing a pairing, are you trying to challenge the flavors of the drink with the cigar, or are you trying to complement them? I know my partner, Ron, who's our spirits expert, always says he likes to challenge the flavor of the cigar. But I think actually all you're doing then is drowning out the flavor. I think it's better to try and make it a complementary experience, because I think the palate then enjoys the combination of flavors from the drink, whatever that may be, if it's cognac or whiskey or rum, and the cigar. But I think this works very well indeed.
I think
I have a question
go for it. Sorry.
Well, I have a question to Jack. Jack, when you mentioned there's like 400 different, let's say, liquids or you call it blends going into one bottle, but I mean, we're talking about 7 different tobacco leaves, which already is a lot, but if you talk 400 or 1200 for the Louis XIII, I mean, that's like, how can you, I mean,
it's crazy. So the way that kind of cognac is cognac's made, and a lot of people aren't quite educated on the sense, because I'm the first one to put my hand up before I started working in the trade, and I was working in just cocktail bars. You just assume that any dark spirit is made in the same way. So you think of, you know, whiskeys and rums, and you know, if you're comparing cognac and rum, you're comparing things that, you know, you cannot compare, because one is a static item, like if you're using things like barley or you're using sugar, year on year, you know, there might be some slight variance, but you're going to have the same consistent product every year. Whereas when you're using things like grapes, and we know this from the wine world, you know, you can have the same producer, same label, 2 different vintages, and they can be completely night and day. So for us, I think it was when we started to get popular a couple of 100 years ago, it was trying to release a consistently excellent product year on year. And the way that you're going to be doing that, in the same way that when you have with champagne, the Grand Marques, they'll have their non-vintage style. You know, they know the DNA, they know the house style, but they'll have a palette, an array of different wines that they can play with to kind of recreate it every year. So for us, the way it works is that we, you know, I think at Remy, we're based right in the heart of the Cognac region. We have around 20, I think 30% of the liquids that we produce, we grow our own grapes. But as we're a multinational company now, it's been very hard to keep up with the demand. So we had to kind of outsource some to some partner growers in the region. And the way it works is they will follow the very, very strict rules that we set. All of them have very high agricultural values as well. So we're, you know, trying to be as carbon neutral as possible. They will grow the grapes, they'll press the grapes, they'll ferment it, they'll make the wine, they'll distill the wine, and that's when it becomes the eau de vie. And then they will present these eau de vies to us. So these kind of, they are almost the embodiment of that wine grower. So you have, when I say there's 400 different eau de vies, it's almost there's 400 different personalities that have gone into the liquid. And for me, that once I started to look a little bit further behind the label and into the spirit and into the terroir, for me, it was like, whoa, there's a real passion and there's a real love behind it. And it's something that's, 2 seconds to sip, but it's taken 30 years to get to the glass, and it's also the person who's making the cognac, it's their whole life was building up to that one point that they made that liquid, So for me, it's really humbling. And I know you guys that when we've done previous cigar events as well, and I've been to Cuba myself and seeing the people make the cigars and, seeing people in other countries and, in Dominican Republic and Nicaragua, they have that same passion. The savoir-faire, I think the French have the best words for everything, that craftsmanship and that love. It's literally they're putting their soul into this item that you're enjoying. And I think it really deserves that respect, and it deserves that little meditative minute just to really understand what they're doing.
Excellent. Jack, I think a couple of people have got some questions. I think Tom had a question. Tom, do you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question?
Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Jack.
Hello.
You mentioned the oak barrels before being fairly porous. Why do you use more porous barrels, especially considering what that means from a loss of liquid perspective?
Yeah, it's not a good business decision if I'm completely honest. So in France, there's a lot of different cognac producers. So for Remy Martin, we call ourselves Fin Champagne Cognac or Fine Champagne Cognac, which basically means we're from the very, very heart of the cognac region, so right in the center. So I'm not saying it's the best style of cognac. I'm saying for the kind of style of cognac that we produce, this is the best location for it. So we don't worry about any of the other regions. Now, there's a couple of other producers. I'm not going to name any names. Any publicity is good publicity. But they produce more perfumed and fruit-led styles. Now, there's 2 different varieties of oak that are quite prevalent for the cognac region. One is called Tronchet, which is very tight-grained oak, and it holds in a lot of the flavors and a lot of the aromas. And then you have what we use, which is called Limousin, which is very large grain and porous, which allows things to breathe. Now, if you're producing cognacs that are heavily perfumed and fruity, You want to hold all of that in. But Remy Martin, we're known for quite aromatic liquids, and they need to develop, they need to breathe. It doesn't make sense on paper because you're losing, I think every day we lose between 3, and depending on the temperature, 3,000 to 4,000 bottles every day. Just, they call this the angel share. And then there's another thing as well that is actually absorbed into the wood, which they call the devil's cut. So we're losing a lot of liquid. So you have some that evaporate through. But what is happening is that the difference in when you let something develop and breathe in the barrel is you remove all of the aggressiveness. You release all of the harmful methanols and ethanols and the undesirable alcohol that you have in the spirit, and it actually dissipates. So what you're then doing, because even in the barrel, there's still really complex chemical reactions happening. There's things like esterification, where flavor chains are building on each other. And when you start to evaporate things, it allows things to join together. Once they lose that ethanol molecule or whatever, they start to develop. It interacts with the wood a lot longer. So I think for us, it's just these little 1% that, create this fantastic product to the end. And I think it's really important that we have this evaporation. I hope that makes sense. It was quite.
No, that's it. Yeah. I always find that the kind of the great thing about these virtual Herfs is that education and that information that we can kind of give across to fans of the spirits and fans of the cigars, and having that knowledge and that more of an informed decision the next time you're shopping online or you walk into a store or anything, that really kind of helps. While we've still got you, Jack, I think Peter had a question as well. Peter, do you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question?
Hi, Jack. Thank you.
Hi.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate some years back to go to a Godet tasting and got to
nice.
1848, and it was absolutely stunning. But also was C.Gars kind of friend Tobias Gordon. I was at his place, and he very kindly opened his Louis Therese, which was absolutely stunning. It was absolutely beautiful. But in terms of kind of vintage stuff, do you have any kind of the very old stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's the oldest that you've got?
Well, in terms of the kind of obviously the core range that we have in the UK, so we have VSOP, we have 1738, we have XO. We have something very special coming out that it's probably still embargoed, but I'm not really supposed to talk about it. But we
won't tell anyone. It's just being recorded. It's fine. We won't tell anyone.
What goes on in the local Herf stays in the Herf.
These 4 walls and obviously the recording is our new cognac, which is called Terce, which will be coming in little drips and drabs. And we'll have a full launch next year, which is a kind of an expression of three of the masters. So our cellar master, our wine grower, and our master distiller. So they came together to create this wonderful blend. We have some limited editions. I know Paul's tried a few of them. The carte blanches, which are absolutely phenomenal, which are, I think, go back to 27 years, but completely different. So that you can still see the Remy DNA, but just really, super limited edition. All the bottles are numbered. And then in terms of like super rare stuff, we don't hold any because it gets snapped up. So if there are any rare bottles, you'll see them in auction sites. I'm sure Paul can source some fine and rare stuff. I know there's some vintage bottles of XO that I've tasted, which have gone almost like Manzanilla sherry, super nutty, really interesting. I've got a bottle of VSOP on my shelf from 1927, which every now and again around kind of Christmas, I'll dip in and have a little 10, 15 ml. And that's gone like almost like an Oloroso sherry and super nutty. Not what the cognac maker ever intended to happen to it, because if I take it to them now to taste, they'll be like, that's not cognac. But yeah, I think for me as well, it's like having, really rare wine. It's nice to have it sitting on the shelf, but, taste it. Like you only live once. I think, if you're going to keep stuff for investment, you should buy 2, one to rock and one to stock.
So in the cellars, you don't have kind of.
Oh, in Remy cellars, yeah, we've got no, sorry, I misunderstood what you said.
Yeah,
in the Remy Martin cellars, there's one of every single bottle that they've ever produced going back to 1724.
Oh, fantastic!
So yeah, if you ever get a chance to go to that part of the world, so about an hour, 2 hours from Bordeaux, go and you go down to their cellars and you taste Louis XIII from the barrel and stuff like that. It's incredible. And they've got one of every single bottle, and it's literally like you stand there like a kid in a candy shop. It's amazing.
Sounds fantastic.
Jack, going back to the carte blanche.
Sure.
We had a good customer in Liverpool for that. Is there still going to be a third release in that range?
So I was with the cellar master and I got him really drunk, and I got him to confirm loosely that there will be. The idea was that it was always going to be a trilogy. Obviously COVID and everything's pushed a little bit back. There will be a third release. I don't know when. I imagine because we're coming up to our 300-year anniversary in a couple of years, so in 2024. So there's going to be some really interesting stuff coming very, very soon. I'm sure there'll be another release of the carte blanche as well. I saw recently that there was an auction in Paris where the carte blanche 1 and carte blanche 2 with the numbers 0001, 0001 sold for 34,000 euros, which was it was the same liquor that we were drinking at the event. But there is that if you get them, squirrel them away, because as with everything that has a number, and I'm probably drinking most of them. So
superb cognacs.
Yeah, thank you.
A question's coming in regards to the kind of the balance, how well the balance of the cigar and the Remy is working tonight. Mitchell and Sam, a little bit of a question for yourselves is how important is the balance when you're blending a cigar? Mitchell, if we go to you first, and then Sam, you can follow up. Hello.
You're not paying attention because I answered that earlier, Anthony.
I'm asking the questions as they come in.
Well, the balance is everything, really and truly. That is the quest when you're blending a cigar, to get the perfect balance between strength and flavor, and other characteristics. But those are the main two things. If you get it wrong in one direction, you get a cigar that's all strength and tastes of nothing. It just blows out your palate, which is exactly the opposite of what I'm always trying to do. I generally try to create full flavored cigars that are light on strength, because I'm quite a heavy smoker and I want to smoke another cigar when I finished the first cigar. So this was a slightly different process because I wanted to have a more fuller bodied cigar. So we had to up the strength, up the body, and keep the balance right on the flavor side. So it's very difficult, and it's interesting when you're actually, for example, blending a Robusto, and then if you try and scale it up to a Toro or a Churchill or a double Corona, it's not a scientific exercise of saying, okay, X% was Ligero or Viso, or the wrapper or the binder. It's not a scientific percentage exercise. You may think it is, but in fact it never comes out quite like that, as I'm sure Sam will attest to. It's a lot of trial and error and mixing and matching until you actually manage to scale up or down the blend accordingly. It's a very complicated process, as I spoke with Henke Kellner on a few occasions, and he confirmed exactly what I thought, that it's not as scientific as you think in terms of just scaling up percentages of the different leaf that make up the cigar, if that answers the question.
That answers it fully. Well,
Anthony, pay attention.
I'm making notes, Mitchell. Don't worry, I'm making notes.
But Sam, I mean, am I saying this correctly about the?
Yes, Mitchell, you do. When it comes to blending, so blending as a name, blending means that the different tobaccos, they have to blend in perfectly to give you a balanced taste stimulation. And I remember when I took over the product development, I was sitting with the master blenders on the table, and everybody goes like, oh, it's nice balanced, And I said, yes, of course it needs to be balanced, but for our dear consumers and cigar lovers, you can say that cigar is balanced, which everybody assumes it has to be, but still there's a huge challenge behind to achieve it. So plus, you know, when you say it's balanced, what today is also very equally important is what are the flavors of the cigars, you know, because with the flavors you can attract some of the cigar lovers and say, oh, you know, I love coffee in my cigar, I love leather, I want to have more spicy one. But it always starts with balance. And balance, basically, if you look now at the Liverpool edition here, we said that it has a certain character, it has strength to it, but balance really comes also from the age of the tobaccos. And here we're talking about minimum 5 years of age for the tobaccos. And this is really important to get this balance in the cigar, you know, that you don't feel like, okay, it's overpowering the palate, or maybe it's only used stimulating a bit the bitter area of the palate. No, it has to stimulate the whole palate, and this comes, of course, with expertise of blending, using the right ingredients, the same with the cognac, and I think that's the beauty of it. You have great ingredients, you have great raw tobacco, but it has been taken care of from the harvest, from the seeding, from the fermenting, from the aging part, and then basically use these tobaccos and you do a beautiful blend with it, you know. And then their balance is the key factor. Balance is super important, and then comes the layer of the flavors, you know, how is the stimulation of the cigar, and why, for example, we taste spicy nose in tobacco, and then it comes back to the terroir, you know. Nicaragua terroir gives a bit, always people think of being mild, strong, and then here it's placed, giving this taste stimulation every cigar, you know, so it's super important.
Let me unmute myself. There we go. So Sam, and obviously everyone on the call is a massive Davidoff fan. But if there's anyone who is relatively new to Davidoff cigars, could you tell us a little bit about the sort of quality control stages? Because Davidoff are synonymous with that luxury quality of the cigar, the construction, the burn, the consistency of the flavor from cigar to cigar. So could you just give a brief overview of the kind of the different quality control stages that every cigar goes through in the Davidoff factory?
Yes, of course. I mean, there I have to start with a philosophy from crop to shop, you know. So basically we have the vertical control from our seed to the final cigar in store, you know. So this is a very important process that you need to have in place while talking quality and while talking consistency. So basically we have 170 different process steps to craft one cigar. We say that one cigar is touched by 300 pairs of hands. So what does it need? What does it mean? So in each stage, on each process step, you really have to nail it, you know. So basically, if you do the harvest wrong or you do the curing wrong, the tobacco will not taste as it should taste, you know, from each variety of the tobacco leaf. And this is super important. So basically, each step is adding to quality. And basically, the more quality steps you have, the more you can monitor and more you can control the outcome of your cigar crafting. And for us, I mean, it's really important. It comes also, there's also a price tag on this, you know. So why is the Davidoff cigar a bit more expensive than the other ones? Yeah, well, we pay a lot of attention to quality, you know. I mean, we could easily skip some steps, you know, and do a cheaper cigar, but then at the end, maybe the draw is not perfect, the burning is not right, the balance of the cigar is just not accurate. So this is for us really, I would say that the highest focus that we have while crafting a cigar. It's all about quality, and especially quality for you guys out there. You know, when you light up a Davidoff cigar, you expect it has to be right. I'm also managing quality complaints globally, and we get a very few, but the quality complaints are like, when the draw is not just 100% perfect, the combustion, I get like a complaint, so we are very picky, and it's great that we are like this, because I can just send it straight to the factory, say, look, please control all the cigars you have there. We can control all the cigars in the warehouses we have, and just make sure that, okay, it's all handmade, so it can happen that one cigar is not 100% perfect, but we really try our best to achieve this. And just in terms of a number, we have, let's say, defected cigars or cigars that are not passing the quality standards is 0.1%. This out of 32 million cigars that we're producing a year, it's very, very few that are not passing the quality tests, And here we're extremely proud of it. And I think quality, the way that we as a company are set up, for us, it's let's say easy in terms of process to monitor, and but also equally important that we really always meet our high quality standards.
Brilliant. Awesome. Jack, quality control from Remy, what's it like?
Very anal. No extreme. Yeah, there's no corners cut. So for example, when they're selecting the eau de vie and when they're selecting it, all of the samples go in blind, even the ones that we produce ourselves. So there's no chance that anything's ever going to slip through just because they need to hit a quota or they need to hit this. It's not the way that we do things. I think as well, you're only as good as your last paycheck, and if you have that risk of selling something or letting something pass through that's subpar, that's what you'll be remembered on, not the amazing 300-year legacy. It's that dud bottle that you let through your kind of strict. It's really, really not worth it.
Oh, brilliant. That's excellent. So I'd imagine people are kind of moving into the final third of the cigar now. How is it pairing for everyone with the XO, or have you started with the XO and then moving on to the 1738? How's everyone enjoying it this evening? Anyone want to jump in and give their thoughts? I think everyone's enjoying it far too much.
Yeah, no news is good news.
Yeah, Jack, I've got a question. It's more of a comment, probably.
Sure.
Yeah, obviously, like 20 years ago, cognac houses, very traditional. You would never see them promoting putting ice into cognac. Never see them promoting making a long drink out of cognac. Things have really changed over the last 20 years, and houses like Remy and the other major houses are really changing their focus of the way that they promote the product to the marketplace.
I think it's super interesting just looking how trends evolve and how things kind of come about. One of the things that I realized recently is that cognac and brandies were actually the gin of their day when they were in their heyday. So for about 100 years ago, if you were in Pigalle in Paris, which is like the cool kind of like East London version of Paris, like the Shoreditch of Paris, people would be drinking they would be drinking cognac Schweppes or like long kind of highballs of cognac. And the problem was that it became so popular, and you only, obviously when you produce cognac, you only have a finite amount because you're limited to the location. As demand grew, they realized that they could start putting the prices up. And then what happened is it started pricing people out. It became super luxury. It actually created the premium and super premium spirit category. So it became a victim of its own success. But it was at the beginning, people used it a lot more flexibly, because flexibility is not a real word. People were a lot more flexible with it. So it would be long drinks, cocktails. If you look at a lot of the original cocktail recipes in the old kind of Savoy cocktail books, and Jerry Thomas is another one, a lot of them called for cognacs and brandies, and especially like a lot of the New Orleans cocktails, it was with cognac and brandy, and it just became too expensive to import it across. And then that's why they started to use cheaper whiskeys and bourbons and ryes instead. But yeah, it was the original bartenders' friend, you know, very, very versatile. And yeah, we're coming back full circle. I've actually got to run because I have another event that I need to run, actually a physical event that I need to run to.
That's all right, Jack.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm really going to enjoy smoking this after my event. There's a terrace at the place. I'm really going to, you know, literally bring Sam to the beach. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. Paul, lovely to see you again. I hope to see you in person soon. And Anthony, thank you for being the host. And Mitchell, thanks for organising. And guys, thank you so much for everything. And yeah, Sam, lovely to hear your knowledge as well. So guys, thank you so much and have a lovely evening. Enjoy the rest of your cognac and your cigar.
Cheers, Jack. Take care, mate. All the best.
Jack,
Bye, guys. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
Jack.
bye.
To be on the C.Gars football team.
Cool. Sam, sort of, what do we need to look out for in the final third of the cigar? What should people expect?
I think what I did, because I was a bit talking a lot and listening, you know, so I was more focused on the cigar bit than on the cognac. I think the cigar is picking up in intensity versus the last third, you know. You get more these deep leather notes, a bit of dark coffee. You have this spiciness again at the beginning. So you have a kind of evolution in the cigar, but it gets stronger stronger. It gets more complex versus the end. And then basically I took again a sip of the XO, you know, and it's smoothing it down a bit, you know. And I think that's a beautiful experience, and it's also a beautiful pairing, how it's really matching also the thirds of the cigar. I don't know how it is for you, but what I really enjoy in cigars is having this evolution. You know, you have different flavors popping up. You have also different kind of strength levels coming up and going, you know. And I think this is the beauty, you know. You have to really listen to the cigar. It's a complex cigar. It has beautiful tobaccos in it, well aged, and I think that's just super interesting. I hope that everybody's enjoying the same. What I always for me, what is important, or sometimes I ask the question, so what that's a good question, you know. I think, you know, the last third is playing into this memorable experience. You know, what do you remember of the cigar? You know, of course, the first third has to be perfect, because otherwise you wouldn't maybe enjoy it until the end. But I think the end is equally important. Leaving this one here is just beautiful in the last third. You know, it shows again the character, and yeah, and I think also the aftertaste is a bit more complex. You know, you can note it's more on the palate. And yeah, I think it's just beautiful. Yeah.
We've lost you, Sam.
Excellent. Anyone want to jump in on their thoughts on the final third? You've gone.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's all right. You're back on. You're back on.
Okay. So which part did you get and you didn't get?
We got most of the audio. The video dropped out for myself. I'm not sure about anyone else.
Need to put another pound.
Okay. No, I think what I said is basically, you know, it's adding up in complexity versus the end, which for me makes it great to remember cigar. You know, I think it's leaving you a nice aftertaste, leaving you a nice finish on the palate. And I think that's the beauty, you know, having this evolution in the cigar from the first third, middle part, last third, without turning bitter. Some cigars, they do turn bitter versus the end. And then basically you think back on the cigar, you say, I love the first third, but the last third wasn't so great. But I think in terms of this cigar, it's really keeping up, and you have these different stimulations, which I really love in a cigar, in a nutshell.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Sam, I fully agree. I think there's a lot of complexity and a lot of nuances coming through on both the XO and also the cigar that, you know, throughout, you know, both experiences, they really complement each other, because, as Mitchell alluded to before, they can clash or they can complement. But I think there's so much complexity happening in both that it's just a continuous journey, which is they're a fabulous pairing.
Yes, I agree. And also, when you look at our range of cigars, I think, well, of course, it's a limited edition, so we try to use special tobaccos in it. But I think also taste-wise and strength-wise, it's a quite unique cigar that you don't find like this in our assortment. And that's what I always, well, I got to enjoy a lot of cigars during a day or during a week. But I still, when I enjoy this cigar, it's always like, it's kind of a newish taste, a newish experience, because sometimes we don't go that high in terms of intensity. And for me, it's just beautiful, you know, and it's opening up maybe a different layer of blending for ourselves as well.
Mitchell, a little bit of a question for yourself, and probably a question for Paul really as well. Is there any view for C.Gars to expand their cognac portfolio?
That's more Paul's department than mine.
Paul, over to you.
Yes, it's certainly something that I've already started looking at. Ron and I have, particularly two different cognac houses that we've reviewed samples on. Mm-hmm. They're actually tied to the cognac cask that we actually use for aging our rum, El Rumbo rum that we import from Cuba. So stay tuned, and I think it'll be early next year by the time we get into bottle and into the UK marketplace. But yes, we want to do a cigar malt, but a cognac addition to our cigar malt.
Oh. And is that because cognac as a category is growing for cigars and growing in the UK as a drink?
I think it's becoming a lot more approachable, as we discussed previously, that the recognition of cognac just being used as to sip and drink by itself, and to be used in long drinks, etc. I think you've got a lot of younger crowd that have been exposed to cognac, whether that's at the entry level as of like Remy VSOP or the 1738 that we've tasted this evening, where they're being used in a lot of cocktails and high-end bars, etc. So there's a lot more focus to cognac.
I remember we did an evening at Puffin Rooms, and we had, I think, Remy cocktails, which went down extremely well.
Correct. Yeah, so they just make a long drink with a soda and a wedge of lime, and as a welcome, long drink, people find them fantastic. As I said before, you and I both go back to 20, 25 years in the cigar industry. You would never see a cognac house coming out and promoting their product going into a long drink. There was always these sort of old school cognac used to be drunk neat in a glass by itself, and that's where their marketing sort of started and ended. But they're seeing them certainly to attract a younger, newer audience, that they're coming out with these recommendations of making long drinks or adding ice to a cognac.
I think it's a good idea. It just makes it more accessible to an entirely different generation of drinkers, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, and it's an education for them as well.
Totally.
Awesome. Anyone got any more questions at all?
I mean, do a straw poll, like what is everyone's favourite drink with a cigar? Is it still really a whiskey sort of market for the cigar smoker? Maybe raise your hand if you're a whiskey drinker with your cigars. I'll fine. Okay. Yeah, that's probably a consensus.
Yeah.
Okay. Rum drinkers with cigars, I'd be up there as well.
Leave your hand up, Mitchell. It'll be easy.
I know. I'm going to change my handle to Mitch at Drunk Cigar. So then you got John at Sober Cigar, Mitch at Drunk Cigar.
Yeah.
Everything and anything. Bring it on.
And ice cream.
Ice cream.
Got his hand up.
Ice cream for sure, but it has to be Haagen-Dazs vanilla.
I recently had an event, and Tom came along, and we did vanilla ice cream with Placencia, which went down very, very well.
Fantastic.
Well, that's a complete flavour sensation on the palate, isn't it? That drives you your taste buds mad. It
Yeah.
sounds funny. People think I'm joking when I first tell them about it, and then they try it. They're like, "Oh my god, that really is something special."
No, that was the consensus on the evening. I think 75% of the people were going, "This is not going to work in any way." And I think everyone left. There was one person who didn't like ice cream. The rest of them were very, very happy. And I think we kind of came to the general consensus: if you buy a box of cigars, buy a pack of ice cream at the same time. So you know,
there were plenty of people going back for seconds, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Can I just comment on the final third of the cigar? It's it's more mellow aftertaste, which is beautiful, but it's even more complex and hard hitting. It's fantastic. I think the one thing I would say about Davidoff cigars compared to the rest of the non-Cuban cigars is you can always differentiate the thirds, like, and especially with like the 702 things like that. You know, non-Cubans tend to be quite often straight down the line. You get the same kind of flavor throughout, but with Davidoffs, you really can tell the thirds. It's beautiful.
But can you with the classic range of Davidoff? Because I can't. For me, the classic range is very linear, and that's not that I'm knocking the range, because I think they certainly have a place and they're very popular because we sell tons of them. But for me, they're a good smoke, but as they start is as they finish. But if you take other ranges, somebody mentioned Yamasa, 702 for sure, late hour for me particularly, there's absolutely distinct 3/3 of flavor development, which is, for me personally, how I think a cigar should be constructed. But I never get that on the classic range. Sam, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, that's true, Mitchell. You know, it's also, I always compare a bit to the world of wines. You know, I think our classic core collection is a bit more like a Pinot Noir. You know, it's straightforward, it's easy to enjoy, and there is a lot of customers out there which they appreciate this in cigar, that the cigar shouldn't be too complicated for them. Having said this, and if you look at the core range, the tobaccos we're using are more, let's say, the old Dominican varieties, a little bit more smoother, milder in taste. And of course, then a cigar can't develop then when you use more oily tobacco like we have it here in the Liverpool edition. But I think what is great, and as you mentioned, Mitchell, we have, for me, and not because I'm working for Davidoff, but I think we have a cigar for each palate. You know, if you want to have, like, let's say, a little bit milder cigar in the morning after breakfast, then the core collection would be perfect. You know, whether after a nice heavy meal you want to have something like a late hour, like a Yamasa, which is a bit more adding complexity to your palate. You know.
Yeah, and that's a very good analogy.
Yeah, I think this cigar is remembering me more like a nice Bordeaux, you know, maybe a Sanders Staff or Pomerol with these nice earthy, stronger tannin notes, more complexity to it, you know. And also what I said before, the cigar is just great to age, you know, and I have to organize myself a few from the factory, just to keep them in the humidor and just see how it develops, you know, because I think it's going to be very, very interesting.
I think you're right. I think if you try and age from the classic range, I don't think they will age. I think they'll stay great cigars for many years, but they're going to taste the same.
Yes.
Your memory, your taste memory will be 5 years, 10 years later. But I think, you know, if you take a late hour or you take an Orchant Selccion, you take any of the heavier blends and you lay them down, I think they're going to get better year on year. And there's very few New World cigars that I would say that about, because most of them don't impress me in terms of their aging qualities and potential, because I don't think they have them. And again, that's not disrespecting them. It's just that's my view on their aging potential. I think most are very limited or nil. I think as they start is as they will be a few years later. But you certainly nailed it in terms of making real blends, real heavyweight blends that will work for aging for the very long term. And that's great, because for the very serious and more sophisticated cigar smoker, that becomes more of an experience where you can buy a couple of boxes, lay one down, you know, smoke one a year, keep a note of how it changed or what your impression was or your marks out of 10. For, you know, for us cigar nerds, that's a lot of fun to do. And I think you know, because you, as you say, you've got a cigar range for literally every person and every occasion. I mean, I remember I used to travel and I used to take the little packs of Entriacos with me. It's not a sophisticated cigar, but it's actually a pretty good short smoke when you haven't got a lot of time, but you might be between airport lounges or whatever, and it worked perfectly. So you didn't really need that to be more sophisticated, or you didn't need to be laying that down to see if it was going to get any better. It did what it said on the can, type of thing.
Yes, I totally agree, and it's also the occasion that plays. You know, when do you choose which cigar? You know, and I think that's a very good comment that you made. Sometimes maybe you just want to have a cigar that's basically accompanying you or is not overpowering you. You know, and you just want to have like a beautiful smoke for, I don't know, half an hour of your time. You know, whereas when you have time, you're sitting in a lounge or you have after dinner cigars, it has to be more complex. And I think that's the beauty, that you can select a cigar also based on your occasion and the mood you're in. You know. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Just a wee question, kind of following on from that, really. Mitchell, Paul, Sam, Anthony, and whatnot. When you're blending the cigar, because there seems to be, I'm fairly new and not complex a cigar smoker. However, there does seem to be 3 specific stages in a cigar. Can you kind of alter each stage of that cigar due to the way you blend, and can you kind of have like or is that just kind of by proxy and you get what you get, or is it you have an overall kind of thing, oh, this is what I kind of want it to kind of taste like, and then you get the different stages, or is it actually, I want this third to taste like this third to taste like this? Is it very, not scientific, but kind of?
Yeah, so basically the scientific part is basically the percentage of each tobacco leaf that you have in the cigar. So here we are we are up to, I don't know, it's not just like 20% of this tobacco, but sometimes it's 22.5%. So it's very accurate. And here, what is a huge role is the expertise of the cigar roller to place the tobacco exactly in the right spot, to get this evolution in the cigar. Now, what we do is, for example, if you imagine you have a tobacco leaf, right, like this one here. So you just fold it, and basically the tip of the leaf is always the part of the leaf where you have most nicotine in it. So what we do is we take the leaf like this, and then sometimes we then take off the last part, or sometimes take off the first part and put the first part in the bag of the cigar. So what we want to try to do is balance it off in terms of the tobacco leaves inside, but then we cannot just say like, okay, we want to have, for example, the second part be stronger than the first part. There's also a little bit of a natural evolution of the cigar itself, because the smoke you draw through the leaves, it leaves you certain, how can I say, the tobacco leaves, they get moisture with the smoke, and then of course it's a natural process that the cigar gets a bit stronger versus the end, it gets more intense, right? What we did try it once as an experiment is basically having the tip of the leaf not always in front, but reverse it. So basically you have a stronger stronger finish of the cigar, but then again, the first part is not so well, how can I say, you don't get too much flavors in the first part, So we say, look, we stick with our expertise, how we do it, moving a part of the tip of the leaf, placing it behind, and vice versa, to get this balance in the blend. And mainly then also when it comes to, you have to imagine it's a little bit like with wine grapes, when you know exactly which grape is giving you a bit more power, like a Cabernet Sauvignon is giving you more strength than Pinot Noir. With the tobacco use, you can mainly on the paper, you get already an idea of the cigar, how it's going to be. And what I think, the more flavorful, the more oily the tobaccos are, the better evolution you have in the cigar.
And does that naturally come from having the orientation of the leaf and smoking the cigar? Have you ever tried just smoking the third, so maybe cutting the end third off a cigar to see if you've got that same kind of flavor profile?
You mean taste? So basically, what we do is, of course, when you taste a new blend, you always smoke it until the end, right? and then you see sometimes the end might be a bit too much, you know. So you go back and maybe you change one Visus grade to a Seco grade, you know, just to balance it off a bit more in the whole blend, you know, and also then versus the end. This is that's very important. As I said before, you know, the cigar, the beginning and the end should be perfect, you know. The beginning to make you to create your appetite to continue with the cigar, and then the last third just be perfect, that you really remember the cigar well, you know.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Sam. Mitchell, I've got a little bit of a question, and it's obviously we've got the London edition, we've got the Liverpool edition. Where's the next edition?
That's a very good question. I think we should have a cyberspace edition. Over the ball.
Paul, where's the next edition?
Great Yarmouth edition.
Yes, Great Yarmouth. The Great Yarmouth edition.
Wolverhampton or Brighton, please.
An Australian edition. Paul, you're muted.
There we go. Paul, Paul.
Here we go. Sorry, I'm unmuted. Yeah, I think I'd worked this out by now after so many since lockdown. Certainly always looking at opportunities for doing new releases with Davidoff. We're going to replicate and do another Placencia Orchant Selccion and Dominique Selection in the next few months. So stay tuned. That will include both a Toro, like we did last year, but also a Lancero, like we did with the original Liverpool, but within the Placencia range. So there are two new cigars which will launch this year, exclusive to C.Gars. In regards to the next Davidoff,
I don't think there will be one. Will there? I think the program's ended, hasn't it, for small batches?
The Davidoff, the exclusive range has, but we'll work with Pascal to hopefully do something exclusive for us. So
excellent.
Yeah, so it's just to add on it. So the exclusive we have been doing since 2015, and now after 6 years we're going to park the exclusive initiative per se. Just to give a little bit of break. So also this one here, buy some boxes, store them, because it's going to be one of the last editions, you know. So I don't know what it's going to be in the future, but yeah.
Well said, Sam. I'll send you that £5 note I promised you for that.
Yeah, but Mitchell, when I heard you talking about 130,000 customers that you have, I mean, the new amount of cigars shouldn't be that high.
I think if anyone's got any final questions, please feel free. While we are waiting, Paul and Mitchell, what's next? What have you got? Another virtual Herf lined up? When's your next one?
Well, because the restrictions are easing, live events are certainly occurring that are in the calendar for puffin rooms. There's one next week with Placencia. I think Roy and Placencia will be in town.
Rodrigo's coming, isn't he?
Yeah, Rodrigo will be there as well.
And we have a big event in late hour turbos in Liverpool coming up for the Nicaraguan.
Correct.
Independence.
Placencia is on the 14th, and then we've got the Nicaragua celebration of independence on the 28th in the puffin rooms. And we've got the ambassador from Nicaragua on site, Scott and his team from Tor. Ricardo will be there as well. So plenty of events there. The next virtual event, though, will be on the 7th of October, which is with La Aurora and Glenallachie. So a lovely single malt whiskey for 12 and 15-year-olds. So all the events are listed under the C.Gars website, under the virtual Herf and live events. So you can go there and keep updated. So look forward to seeing you all on future events. If you can get to Liverpool, happy to see you. I'll be back in the UK next week.
I'm going to be in London on next week on Monday. Is the C.Gars shop / kind of cigar lounge kind of open? I've got some There's quite a few wine tastings and stuff on Monday, so
pop in and have a cigar.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. So I may, if I get it right, you're near kind of Pall Mall, aren't you? You're quite near 67 Pall Mall.
Yeah, well, we're on St James's Street, just on the corner of Ryder Street. We're between JJ Fox and Davidoff.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, no worries.
It's very easy to find.
Bring it on. Fantastic.
Look forward to welcoming you. To welcome all of you at some stage, at some place in the near future, especially Sam. It'd be nice to see you in person at one of our Herfs in the near future, hopefully, as things start to return to bloody normal.
Yeah, it would be my pleasure again. With pleasure.
Definitely. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody that joined us. Shame we didn't get to talk about Roy behind his back, but we've run out of time, so we're going to have to do another visit for that. But have a lovely rest of the evening, everybody, and I hope to see you all soon.
Thank you ever so much. Thank you, Mitchell. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Sam. And thank you to everyone who's joined in this evening. Take care, everyone.
Cheers. Good night.
Thanks,
Thank you. Good night. Bye.